The Fed 15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc. Welcome back to this week's super spooky episode of the Fed 15 podcast presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll discuss the latest news and info that feds need to know in 15 minutes or less. You could say, It's like magic.
It's like magic. It is indeed.
So whether you are a seasoned federal employee or you're just starting out in your career, Fed 15 has got you covered. Grab your coffee, grab your witch's brew, kick back, and we will tell you what you need to know but might have missed in the federal space this week. We are your hosts. I'm Katelyn Murray, and I am joined by Dan Sipe, who appears to have logged on to record the Halloween episode without a costume on.
Are you absolutely sure, Katelyn? Are you 100% sure?
Well, I mean, I was expecting maybe like some vampire fangs, maybe like a little, I mean, we could have gone all out with the green
something
face
pointy?
paint.
Something
maybe.
Pointy, perhaps?
Yes.
Pointy teeth?
Perhaps.
Well, okay, so let me put it this way. If I stepped out of a limo in the middle of the night on an abandoned road.
It's sounding very Halloween-y. I'm loving it.
And I said, guys, the lugs are chrome. You're going to strip them. And when they turned on me with guns. Okay, so fit man, graying hair, adamantium pointy claws. I would say I'm watching out for my friend Charles Xavier. And I'm working this crummy limo job to be able to get enough money so we can buy a boat.
Love it. Very cool.
So I was in costume all along because that's the thing with mutants. You never know.
It's true. That is true. There we go. Dan Sipe, always prepared. We love it.
Yep. Yeah.
We love it.
Aside from the fact that I'm supposed to be 5 feet 2 inches tall Canadian and weigh 600 pounds. that adamantium skeleton is pretty heavy.
It's pretty heavy.
But otherwise, I think I just nailed it.
That adamantium skeleton has to wage war on the BMI chart. I'm telling you.
Yes, yes, and as we learned from Wolverine canon, the introduction of the adamantium over time actually breaks down his healing properties. So he was previously kind of immortal because he kept. Yeah, but now that we know that, courtesy of Ryan Reynolds, that Wolverine is going to be working until he's 90,
Love it. Very fun. Very fun.
Yeah, so Wolverine and I have something in common. My team tells me, they whisper to me, until you're 90.
Until you're 90.
so yes,
love it.
I will be here.
Love it. Love it. Well, we have a packed episode full of tricks and treats for you today with the Halloween episode. Dan is going to cover what can be a spooky topic, but is important for feds to know. And then we're also going to talk about something that has a lot of people spooked lately, the election, the 2024 election. We've got a great article out on the blog talking about the impact on the stock market there. So I will cover that a bit later. But Dan, talk with us about this important topic that we covered on the blog this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, we get a lot of questions about this, and divorce is frequently a fact of life. And now we don't ever wish for that to happen, but when it does, you need to understand how your federal benefits are impacted and what documents, what procedures, things like that. So got a great article in there. Also, in our vault in the Fed Zone, Ed Zerndorfer has written a handbook on it. So we are mindful of making sure that we have these resources for you. So I'm going to hit some of the key points. So, for example, with a federal pension, the divorce settlement needs to have a court order acceptable for processing, COAP, that's going to detail pension division either as a percentage or a fixed amount. OPM is going to follow that. Relative to TSP, a retirement benefits court order, different thing, is required to divvy up the TSP assets between spouses. One of the things, and this is kind of splitting hairs a little bit, you want to make sure that you're taking into consideration tax implications so that you're assessing the net after-tax value compared to after-tax assets like a house or joint accounts or things like that. So this is something to talk with your attorney about. Social Security benefits, so someone's FERS, that's a factor. If the marriage lasts at least 10 years, an ex-spouse may be eligible for Social Security benefits based on the federal employee's record after the divorce. Now, here's the thing, that doesn't take anything out of the pocket of the spouse for whom the record is used for claiming. And again, relative to that court order and divorce settlement, that COAP outlines all of the divisions, and it needs to be specific. One of the worst things that can happen out of divorce documents and decrees is to be silent on things, because then OPM is going to have to interpret that the most conservative way possible. Survivor benefits, that court order could grant survivor benefits if the federal employee passes away. And once that happens, there's no changing that. So the Fed can't go in and change a beneficiary designation, something like that. So crucial that you address survivorship. That's one of the things that we don't find it a lot, but the times that we find it, it's a mess. If it's silent on that, it can turn out pretty badly. So if the former spouse remarries before age 55, they're generally disqualified from survivor benefits unless the divorce decree specifies otherwise. So that's an example. If your decree is silent on that topic and you remarry, you might be thinking there's still a survivorship coming, and there isn't. So very important. With regards to dividing the TSP assets, you also want to take into consideration that now more than ever, there can be pre-tax TSP, Roth TSP. That has to be factored into the discussion with your divorce attorney in the negotiation. Health benefits and divorce. After divorce, former spouse is no longer eligible for the FEHB program, but may qualify for a temporary continuation of coverage of up to 36 months. Again, want to make sure that you have these things spelled out in there. The big thing here, you need to understand the total value of all of these assets. And it's not always that easy to quantify that. This is a place where working with a professional who truly understands the federal system can be invaluable for you. So there are some attorneys out there who understand it. If yours doesn't, probably not a bad idea to get somebody in the mix who does. So hopefully nobody ever needs it, but if you do, want to make sure that you have what you need. So that's what I got, Katelyn.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing there is, the time to value those assets. And I would even say the total net value, right? So netting out, counting for things like taxes and what the implications could be there in the future. The time to do that is before you head to the negotiating table.
Yes.
To kind of get that valuation.
Silence is not golden. Silence is not golden. Silence is bad.
Yep. For sure. Well,
so Katelyn, what do you have for us? Because, oh my goodness, there's another election coming. And if, I know you've heard it. If this happens, we're all doomed. If that happens, we're all doomed. So how many times, Katelyn, we've had a lot of presidents through the years. How many times have we been doomed? We've been doomed a lot, right? We've been doomed a lot. Is that what we're going to find out?
Persistently doomed, doggedly doomed, diligently doomed even. Yeah. So we've got a great article up on the blog. There a lot of times we write from our expertise as a team on federal employee benefits. We talk a lot about things like FEGLI and FERS and CSRS and talking about FEHB and Medicare. And all of that is great information. But some of my favorite articles that we have online stem from real conversations that we are having with real feds and real client meetings every single day here at the firm. And this one is definitely a perfect example of that. We have been answering all kinds of questions about the 2024 election. How is this going to impact me? What's going to happen? Should I sell everything and go to cash? Should I sell everything and go to gold or silver? It really does kind of freak people out, even though it is something that we go through every 4 years on a cycle, right? So our colleague, Matt Kramer, who's a financial advisor here with us, put together this awesome article using data from Dimensional Fund Advisors. And this data shows that average yearly returns are around 13.67 under Democratic presidents and about 9.38% under Republicans, not accounting for major economic crises. Now, the issue there, you might hear that initially, and my Democrats are probably excited, my Republicans are probably upset. What happened just because of the fall of the years and how the cycle worked out? If we take out big, truly big, groundbreaking market events, the Great Depression, the Great Recession, if I pull those out of that data, the average for Republicans would be 15%. So really what we're trying to underscore in this article.
So Herbert Hoover was not personally responsible for the Great Depression. He didn't do it all by himself.
Hot take. Herbert Hoover did not single-handedly bring about the Great Depression. But if you're looking at those averages, you got upwards of 13.5%, you got 15%, excluding those truly kind of cataclysmic events, we're seeing kind of roughly the same return. And this goes back to the idea, very simple. Another colleague of ours, Sandra Pressgraves on the team, puts it best, I think. Money is not red or blue, it's green.
Whoa.
And that is very, very true. This article that Matt put together, it is truly a deep dive. He goes through every president from 1929 all the way up to the present. And he looks at what the returns are and kind of, how things were impacted. Key takeaways here, we've got a couple for you. Number one, presidencies are not significantly impactful or predictive of stock market performance. The market is indifferent. It's agnostic. It does not care what political party or specific president over the long term. And I think part of that is because the president serves 4 years and the market moves. When we talk about a long-term outlook, we're talking about 10 years plus. And so, the fact that cycle exists kind of every 4 years, I think is offset by that kind of longer term focus of the market. Another key takeaway from 1929 to 2023, the S&P 500 index averaged over 11% annual returns during presidential terms, with only Bush Jr., Nixon, and Hoover posting negative returns. Obviously, we've talked about kind of the things that were going on there. And this indicates an overall upward trend regardless of who was in the office. If you're at a computer right now, you can Google S&P 500 index historical market returns, and you can pull up a chart and you can see that in the big picture, the grand scheme of things, you can track it all the way back to 1880. Things are going up and to the right, no matter who is president, no matter what party is in office. Stock market performance is influenced by things like monetary policy, inflation, interest rates, global events. And a lot of these things, folks, are beyond presidential control, right?
Sure.
They are not doing it alone. The executive branch does not function, as a mandate. And, Congress exists for a reason. The judiciary system exists for a reason. And, it's things like monetary policy aren't dictated by one sole person, even if that person does have some ability to maybe influence those things. And then we've got the stuff that folks have no influence over. 9/11, the pandemic, the panini, if we can't say that word on YouTube still. It's, those things kind of swoop in out of nowhere, and whoever's in office has to manage them as best that they can.
Sure. And they've been going on for a while. Cuban Missile Crisis.
That's a great example too. Yeah.
Okay, I was a little kid in school, and they were teaching us. Let's think this through, people. They were teaching us in the event of that attack to sit in the hallway with our jackets over our heads, because that was going to save us. But I mean, we do run into these things over and over and over and over again, and yet, as you say, up and to the right.
And really, all of that is grounded in the concept of the efficient market hypothesis. The efficient market hypothesis basically is a thought process, a schema, if you will, that basically explains that stock prices reflect all available information, making election responses really short term. You're not going to hear on the news that the federal government is going to switch to all electric vehicles and then go buy Tesla stock and get a deal. The price of Tesla stock has already priced in that announcement. And so you're paying that premium with that information kind of baked in. And really overall, the market responds more to uncertainty than to whoever's in office as president. Long-term performance is going to favor stability over party-specific policies that change in the very short term in the grand scheme of things. And really, long-term investment strategies are going to be your way to navigate a lot of that short-term volatility. Keep a long-term focus, regardless of who's president, regardless of who's in office. And, the key is staying invested rather than trying to time the market. There's never going to be a way that you're going to be able to amass as much information as you would need and be able to move as quickly as you would need to be able to move to get ahead of things. This is the kind of seduction of active management, right? Thinking that there's going to be a way that you can somehow learn enough about the market and stay up to date on it in order to kind of outpace things. So really recommend you taking a look at this article, particularly if you've been having some anxiety around election season. I get it. Everybody kind of is impacted by this. It's something that we kind of can't escape from. You're getting ads for it on TV. You're getting ads for it on social media. You're seeing ads for it as you kind of drive around. It's hard to escape. But I think that this article by our own Matt Kramer is a very much needed breath of fresh air and a reality check for a lot of us that kind of get swept up in things. I am not going to tell you that the election is not important. What I am going to tell you is that there is not a measurable impact on the market either way, depending on party, right?
Sure.
So,
you mentioned the three presidencies that were negative. I was coming out of high school during the Nixon administration, and that was pretty seismic. But not just the fact that there was an investigation or resignation. I mean, we had rampant. It's the one time we had hyperinflation in this country. We had an oil embargo. I mean, just all kinds of things hitting all at once. But what a lot of people miss, and this is why I encourage everybody to go to this article. Somebody finished that term.
Yeah.
Okay, so President Nixon started it. Somebody finished it, and that was President Gerald Ford. Look at the return.
Yeah.
And Gerald Ford was not a wizard. He didn't just come in and wave a wand and everything got right. So, Katelyn,
unlike
your points
myself,
are very well taken.
He was not.
Yes.
He was not.
Yes.
He didn't dabble on witchcraft.
Yes. There you go.
Excellent.
Well,
and
you're like Glenda, though. You're a good witch.
Oh, for sure. Oh, the best.
And as we've learned from Wicked, are there any bad witches?
Are there? Who knows?
Some are just misunderstood.
Like people themselves, we
Indeed.
can say.
Indeed. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. But we will be back next week. Sorry, I won't have my adamantium claws with us. But we'll be back next week to give you all the updates you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
Indeed. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast on our YouTube channel or on Spotify so that you never miss an episode. And please, please, please do share it with your friends and colleagues. It is a great way to kind of boost the signal.
Yep. And for more information on the topics we covered today and more, check out the blog. That's blog.stwserve.com and subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving. and you'll get all the latest news delivered straight to your inbox. You don't even have to go looking for it. So it's right there.
Absolutely. And for those who want to dive even deeper into learning about your federal benefits and financial planning for feds, we really do encourage you to join us for one of our complimentary webinars. It is all treats, no tricks, folks. We promise. Coming up, we have a wonderful session on FERS. That's going to be on November 1st from 9 a.m. to noon. And that is hosted by our very own Dan Sipe. And then on November 6th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., I will be hosting a session on FEDLife. Really kind of recommend that folks take a look at those sessions there. The FERS session is a great entry level webinar. I mean, all of them are made accessible, but that's a great place to start because that is kind of a cornerstone. FEDLife can be really great if you've got questions about, that particular benefit, or if you're like pretty close to retirement. Joining for this FEDLife session can be helpful for figuring out kind of how you're going to deal with that through the retirement transition. So definitely recommend checking that one out as well. Now, of course, if you prefer a one-on-one approach, if you're looking for a little bit more support from a financial planning perspective, you can always reach out to our team directly for a financial planning consultation at askstws@stwserve.com.
Absolutely. So everybody, thanks for listening to Fed 15. I'm Dan Sipe.
And I am Katelyn Murray.
And we will see you next week. And I will see you until I'm 90.
See you, everybody. Take care.